Nice Micro Monday. Is the Unix philosophy still relevant? So Unix philosophy comes up a lot in discussions regarding to Linux and free software, but this is like one of the things that a lot of people bring up when they are criticizing some projects they don't like. For example, Systemd is on the receiving end of this criticism of not aligning well with the Unix philosophy, and there are some people who would bring up that, well, the Linux kernel itself does not really align well with the Unix philosophy either. And if you don't know, the Unix philosophy is this assumption that every program should do one specific thing, but the program should do that one specific thing very well and very predictably. And so on one end of the spectrum, there are in the kind of this Linux open source free software ecosphere, there are people who are very enamored with this philosophy, who very much like this philosophy and think that it is the way to do things. And there are other people who are more concerned about the general appearance of the Linux operating system and its appeal towards like a more general audience who think that, well, the days of the Unix philosophy is over, because today the focus is on big monolithic, or at least, multifunctional software suites, when one program is built to handle a lot of different kind of things, and everyone likes to use these big applications that will do everything. And so they will think that thinking in this kind of the Unix philosophy approach is just it should just go out the window. We don't need this philosophy anymore in the Linux or the free software ecosystem. It's not really useful anymore, because people just want to start up one program and want to just click around until they could do whatever they wanted, and don't want to deal with a lot of separate small programs. And the thing is that in free software, for me, the biggest advantage of free software is, of course, the freedom it gives us to modify the programs and fork projects and make these programs in the way that serve us instead of serving the people who are writing the programs. And I think, well, in a lot of programs, what you can do with a lot of software, a lot of free software, what you can do is, of course, you can take the source code, modify it, and repurpose it for yourself. But generally, the approach that the Unix philosophy gives us is makes us even more free, in my opinion, because if you think about it, those programs that themselves, each of them does one thing, but they do it very well, that means that they can be used to achieve something similar on a very wide variety of input, for example. And what I would like to get there is that basically what you can do is you can get one of these programs, produce an output, and then you can use that program's output as the input of another program, and just link them together in a long list and achieve something with these programs together, instead of using one big program and then trying to fiddle around until you get your desired output. Because the thing is, it gives you much more flexibility. So using these programs, these small programs that you can just interlink with each other, can give you a toolbox that you can achieve things that the original creators of the program didn't even imagine, or maybe they imagined, but they don't have to implement it. So if you take a look at my backup script, for example, which I wrote entirely in Bash, so it's a shell script, it uses this kind of it's a script that combines a lot of these small programs that will check for when the dates of the different files, to check when was the last update made, and then we'll use rsync, which is also very simple, relatively simple command line tool to copy things, and So I can, by modifying my script, can change the interaction of these small programs and basically achieve something with these small programs instead of using something that many people would use, something like Timeshift, for example, which is just done with that program is made specifically to make backups. But with my script, I could modify it to anything I need specifically. And of course, because this would be done by shell scripting, which for some people is as scary as programming itself. And maybe it is programming, it is writing algorithms basically. But, well, shell scripting and having to just open the source code for a big program like a C source code and modifying that one to fit your purpose, I think, the difference in difficulty is that big that one of these things I could do, the other things I probably wouldn't be able to do in the same amount of time. So this gives us a little more flexibility if we have programs that are done in this way that adheres more to the Unix philosophy. And one of the things, like a counterexample, which is a application that came up in the quotation mark news lot, that is Audacity, and people are complaining, of course, about the new owners of Audacity screwing it up. But the big problem of Audacity is that it is very old software, and the code base is like very complex. So in proprietary case, people would probably, who are writing the software, would be able to just try to, increase the price of the software or some way to be able to get enough money so they can retain the people who already wrote the code and can maintain it. But in free software case, I think if you want software that is more future-proof, that is more sustainably developed and really respects our freedoms, so people can actually fork it easily because the code is not really obfuscated, then the Unix philosophy is a good approach. So even if you are making like a big program that is geared towards more specialized or like more complicated things where you have like a very specific workflow in mind, isn't it better if you can break it down to smaller pieces and make each small piece separately working and separately maintainable? And wouldn't that be better for the future? So when someone wants to use some part of your project, so for example, let's take the example of Audacity. So maybe I want to make a video editing software and I want some basic audio editing functionality in my video editing software. Wouldn't it be nice if I could just take out the parts of Audacity that do, for example, I need like an audio compressor tool. So wouldn't it be neat if Audacity just there was like a separate binary, for example, that performs that specific task, and I could just, take it and put it into my program instead of having to somehow surgically remove the relevant parts from its code base and put it into mine, or just everyone who wants to make a new audio editing part in their software has to rethink and rewrite from scratch these kind of basic operations. So I think in general, while on the surface level, the Unix philosophy might seem to be outdated, I think it is a very good approach if we want sustainable and really free software that really respects our freedom and that's really freely reusable and not just on the surface user experience level, but for developing new projects. Because in the free software community, a lot of people are working on these projects as a hobby. They don't get paid, or at least they don't have like a full-time job with it. Maybe they have, Patreon support or something like that, or, some other means of donations, but maybe they don't do it full-time. Maybe they work for free on it. So wouldn't it be nice if we could make these small pieces to work in a way that it would be easier for anyone else in the future to reuse? So I guess this is the end of the video. Subscribe, comment, thumbs up, and find me on Mastodon. Nice Micro Monday. Is the Unix philosophy outdated? No, it's not.